Thank you, Chairman Thune. Thank you very much. And being from South Dakota, Chairman Thune, I know you understand the digital divide and the real challenge facing rural areas. Having no cell phone reception is not just an inconvenience for people. It can mean not being able to call 911, an emergency, and I know you all realize that. And during the years, we've had many people come forward and talk about some of those devastating consequences in terms of not being hooked up to the emergency network. Mobile broadband also enables innovation and new opportunities for job creation, and that's something we really want to see in New Mexico in our rural areas. Our constituents living in rural areas should not be left behind. So I'm glad, Chairman Thune, that you're focusing the committee on this subject. Mr. Adelston, when you were RUS administrator, you just mentioned that. I had the pleasure of hosting you in Moriarty, New Mexico for a broadband and smart grid summit. And I know, you enjoyed that. You've got a smile on your face still. So I know you understand that building broadband infrastructure in New Mexico and other rural states can involve approvals from multiple federal agencies, such as the Bureau of Land Management, the Forest Service, and I want to ask you about ways to streamline the permitting process for broadband deployment on federal lands. Could you discuss potential changes that could reduce the cost of deployment, such as piggybacking on existing rights-of-way? For example, installing a fiber optic line along an existing power line or other infrastructure where the ground has already been disturbed rather than chopping it up for a new line.
Yeah, thank you. We hope we made progress on broadband in New Mexico since then, but I know there's more to do.
With your good help.
And your great leadership. I know you've been committed to this issue for a long time, and I think federal lands, which control so much of your state, are really critical because those are vast rural areas that have virtually no coverage because our industry is afraid to go there because they get caught up in these reviews. There's actually a bill, I see Senator Klobuchar is here, that she's considering legislation on this. Senator Rubio's introduced legislation, S1618. Senator Gardner talked about this earlier. We think that there are things you can do. You can create a standard fee schedule so our people know exactly what the rates are going to be across different agencies and have it be based on real costs. You can have fee retention by agency, which that bill would enable, which would allow the agency basically to take a piece of the pie to help pay for the cost of doing the processing of those forms so that they have an incentive to get these things done instead of agencies that, like, I'm not going to name any agencies that'll get me mad at them, but, that just put it at the bottom of their pile because their job is to manage federal lands, not to enable broadband. I think having common forms and contracts would be extremely helpful. It's in that bill. Having an expectancy of lease renewal. Sometimes on federal lands, we get very short lease periods. You want to invest a huge amount of capital to build, say, a tower, for example, that's got a 30-year life, and you get a 5 or 10-year lease expectancy. It's very helpful if you can get a longer term. The bill calls for a point of contact, an ombudsman to oversee a negotiation process to get that done, to make sure if something gets caught up that it gets moved, and regular reporting on progress to Congress. I think that the Broadband Opportunity Council had a lot of great ideas. These are other ideas that could build upon it that this committee could address through legislation.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for that answer, and it's really good to see fellow senators working on this, including Senator Klobuchar and Senator Gardner. Do other members of the panel, do you have ideas on this specific area? Please.
The Broadband Opportunities Council will be addressing this issue, and we have sat down with several providers that have shared very similar lists as PCIA here. So I think that it goes a long ways in sharing that information with the committee as we move forward to try to implement some of the streamlining.
Great. Mayor,
Thank
please.
you, Senator. Again, it's a privilege to be here. My committee at the FCC, the Intergovernmental Advisory Committee, consists of mayors and state legislators and Indian tribe members from around the country. So we have a broad perspective of the status of broadband and what needs to be done around the country. But one of the things that we've recognized is that there are many federal programs, especially dealing with transportation initiatives, that do not allow broadband to be built under the grants that are awarded under those programs. I have two members of my committee from Kansas, and I as well, even though I'm from an urban area in Florida. We wanted to use grants that we received for transportation projects, and we were not to install conduits. and we were not allowed to install conduits as part of those projects. So if there's ways of eliminating some of those barriers under existing federal programs, that would be helpful.
Great. Thank you very much. I've run out of time, but if you want to give a very quick answer with the chairman's permission.
I was just going to echo the sentiments of the representative from PCI, but also add that each department within the federal government sometimes has its own processes. If the process was the same, it would be quicker and more commercially viable for commercial carriers to deploy quicker. Again, one checklist would be very helpful moving forward.
Great. Thank you for those answers. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Senator Udall. Senator